Just before we start the episode, here's a trailer for another podcast. If you like what you hear, go and check it out.
I'm John Gully, and I'm a true crime audiobook narrator.
And I'm true crime author Jeffrey Dean Doty.
And we're your hosts for the true crime podcast, Speaking of Crime.
We both have been fascinated by crime, criminals,
and people who investigate them.
Ever since we were young.
And that's been a long time.
As a true crime writer, I'm used to asking questions and getting answers.
As a narrator, I'm used to talking about crime and discussing cases with authors.
You'll be surprised by the cases we cover.
And by the people we talk to.
So we hope you listen every week as we delve deep into the world of crime and talk to the people involved.
You can find Speaking of Crime on Podbean, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or almost anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Join us for the show So Good It's Criminal.
Take my advice and give us a try. You'll thank me later.
Hello and welcome to Crime Divers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And join us for this week's episode called Wrongfully Accused.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Here we are.
So, as we're still in December, I've got another December case, another festive one, but which isn't festive.
See, I meant to be like getting all excited about Christmas, and now I'm like, oh no.
I know, I'm kind of regretting.
Doom and gloom now.
Yeah, I know.
But as we are a true crime podcast, we can't expect any happy endings, unfortunately.
No, and people's stories need to be heard.
Exactly.
So,
no matter what time of the year.
No, exactly. So,
are we going to dive in?
Yeah, we're going to dive right in. So this case is called Wrongfully Accused, so obviously you've got a little bit of an idea, not like other episodes when people are like, what? This is fairly...
I know, I'm quite pleased that we're doing a Wrongfully Accused one, because
I
wanted one.
Yeah, you did say to me a few weeks ago it would be good if we could do like a sort of miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
And I found one for you.
And it happened to be a Christmas one.
Yeah, it happened to be a Christmas one. I actually really came across it by accident.
Okay.
So, because I'd been sort of like Googling like Christmas, December, and nothing was coming up.
Right.
And then eventually I just typed in, I don't even know what I typed in, it was nothing to do with Christmas or anything. I got a December one. It's not exactly Christmas, but...
It's the right one.
It's in the festive period.
Exactly.
So... This case was in the year 2000, so 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
How many times I say, so it wasn't that long ago, and it's like, yeah, that was 20 years ago.
Oh my god, that makes me feel so old.
Well, No. So, Rachel Manning was 19 years old. Mm-hmm. She was a shop assistant, and she lived in Milton Keynes in England. She had met her boyfriend, Barry White, not the singer.
I was just thinking of Barry White.
Yeah, he spells his name differently. He actually spells his name Barri.
Oh, right, okay.
So, but every time I was like typing it, I felt I had to put even put an E on the end of it, like,
right, okay,
because it just looks unfinished. That sounds bad, but it does. It's like Barri.
But that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's his name. We shouldn't be slagging him off for his name.
No judgment.
No, you can't help it. Anyway, so, so she met him in 1998 when he worked in JJB, the sports shop.
JJB Sports?
Yeah.
I remember JJB Sports.
Did that get shut down?
Yeah, because it was like JD and JJB.
That JJB was the cheap version of JD, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was because
it was the cheaper one.
I remember up at our shopping centre, I used to go there a few times, and it was like a green and bluey kind of logo, wasn't it?
I think it was blue. Oh yeah.
I had like green and blue.
This is totally unnecessary.
I know, but
that's where he worked.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
It was obviously still around in the year 2000 because that's where he worked.
Yes.
So Rachel was a feisty, no-nonsense kind of person, and she would put Barry in his place when needed. He says she was a lovely person, she was bubbly, great personality, great laugh to be around, always the life and soul of the party, and would never hurt a fly. They had been living together, but they were struggling financially, so they moved out of their flat. So Rachel went to live with two male friends, and Barry went back to live with his mum. So on the 19th, it's the 19th of December. Have I got that right? I could have sworn it was like the 10th, because I just said to you, didn't I, that mine was on the 10th of December.
Yeah.
I really hope I've got that right. Okay, we'll just keep going.
Okay.
On the 19th of December 2000, they went to a fancy dress party, which was for Barry's mum's 40th birthday. Mm-hmm. So later on that night, they went and they left the pub where that one was, and they went to a nightclub called Chicago's. They left the nightclub round about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and Barry got into an argument. He had bought a kebab, and it had, I don't know if this is probably not, I don't think this is the right way to say it, but this is how I say it, right?
Okay.
It had jalapeno peppers on it.
Jalapenos?
Yeah, I call them jalapenos.
That's because that's how it's spelled.
Yeah.
But jalapeno.
But I watched a documentary and Barry himself called them jalapenos. So I thought, well, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
Fair enough.
So, but I thought you would moan at me for saying it wrong.
Would I?
Me and John say it like that.
No, I say jalapeno, personally. Yeah. But,
Whenever John asks for jalapeno peppers in Subway, they always know what he means. So
yeah, but they're thinking, oh my god, what?
So Barry doesn't like jalapeno peppers. So
why is that even funny?
It's not. I don't know why you're laughing. You're laughing because of the way I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Barry said it had jalapeno peppers on it, and Barry doesn't like jalapeno peppers, alright?
That does not sound right.
I think it sounds right. I think jalapeno doesn't sound right.
But obviously you know that people say it that way though.
I know, but I don't. Blame John. I have no reason to say that word because I don't like them.
No, I don't like them either. Although, to be fair, when I go to Subway and I get just in Subway, I have to say everything except jalapenos.
See, I wouldn't even say it. I'd be like, those green things.
Oh no, I say it, that's what I say.
Because
Anyway, let's get off of the Subway food.
Right, it had jalapeno peppers on it. Barry doesn't like jalapeno. Oh, I didn't say it right, jalapeno. So he picked them off and threw them away. Shh.
I'm sorry.
Shh. Can I carry on, please? If you're going to have a fit of the giggles, then you can leave.
I'm not. I'm fine.
Yeah, so he picked off the peppers and threw it away. So one of the peppers hit someone, so the guy wasn't happy. Why are you laughing?
I don't understand.
I'm going to have to switch this off, aren't I? Right, okay, shall I switch it off? Okay, I'm going to switch it off and we'll come back when Laura stopped laughing. Hello, we're back now. Laura's calmed down.
Yes, I'm over my laughing fit. That was quite funny though, I have to say.
Well, because Barry doesn't like jalapenos.
Don't start again. Let's just move on from the jalapenos.
Well, that's the first time that's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have to say that he was chucking his jalapenos off the kebab and it hit somebody.
Right, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Just don't laugh.
Okay.
And the guy wasn't happy. So, you know what people are like when they're drunk and...
Yeah.
So him and his friends came at Barry. I actually saw the CCTV of it, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and one of them, just punched him in the side of the side of his head.
Alright.
Punched him, it was like, ugh. Anyway, so Rachel stepped in front of Barry and she managed to get them to stop. Mm-hmm. But somebody had already phoned the police, so the police had arrived and Barry just walked away because he was like, I didn't want to get arrested,
yeah.
So he just walked off. So Rachel followed him and they walked around for a bit and then they stopped for a chat behind a restaurant. She tried to persuade him to go back towards the club to get a taxi. I don't know if there was maybe a taxi rank outside the club.
Yeah.
But Barry, he didn't want to go back that way just in case the guys were still hanging around. He just didn't want any more trouble, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
He was working the next morning and he just wanted to get back to his friend Keith's house because that's where he was staying that night.
Right.
So he went back to Keith's and Rachel attended back to get a taxi. So Keith hadn't been out that night with them. So he'd arrived at Keith's and Keith was just making Barry a cup of tea and the phone rang and it was Rachel and she told Barry that she didn't know where she was. She'd somehow managed to get lost. Mm-hmm. But he must have had... I was quite a bit confused by this because he told her to meet him at Blockbuster, so he must have had some idea.
Oh, I used to work for Blockbuster.
I knew you were going to say that. He must have had some idea where she was to tell her how to get to Blockbusters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, Blockbusters is a video shop, which I'm sure everybody knows. And Laura used to work there. There you go.
I used to be the manager. Not just work there.
I
had my little shop.
I know, I liked it when you worked there.
Yeah, it was good.
So he told her to go to Blockbusters and that he would meet her there.
Mm-hmm.
So Keith gave him a lift to Blockbusters, but Rachel wasn't there, and even though they waited for a bit, but she never arrived. So they drove around looking for her, and they went back to Blockbusters 3 times, but she still never turned up.
Did they not phone her?
Well, see, this is like the year 2000, so I don't know what, like, because when she phoned him, it was on Keith's landline.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know if she was maybe in a phone box. It didn't specify.
Of course, mobiles were around then, but they weren't what they are today.
Not everybody had them.
Not
and we didn't have all these like unlimited text. I mean, she could have had a phone but had no credit in it.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. That didn't come up. So, they were out looking for her. They went back to Keith's house, and Barry went back out on foot to look for her.
Mm-hmm.
But he couldn't find her. So eventually he decided to go home as he was knackered and he would have to go to work in a few hours. So he got a lift from Keith and he arrived home about 5 a.m. He went to work later, and when he came home he asked about to see if anyone had heard from Rachel, but no one had. So he was getting worried by now. He went to her work, but she hadn't turned up that day. So by then he knew that there was definitely something was wrong.
Yeah.
So he went to her flat, and with her flatmates they phoned Rachel's mum. She came over, and that's when they reported Rachel as missing. Mm-hmm. So soon after, a massive search began, and unfortunately 2 days later Rachel's body was found. The greenkeeper of Woburn Golf Club had been out and about in his daily rounds, and that day they were getting some new cabling laid, and he was patrolling the grounds and he saw what looked like a white boot. Mm-hmm. He went for a closer look and he realised it was a body.
Oh God!
And he phoned the police. I know I say it in all the episodes. It must just be horrendous to find a body. Mm-hmm. So this is where it starts to get annoying. Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot to mention at the start of this case, it's really infuriating because obviously wrongfully accused.
Yes.
Right. This is where it starts.
Okay.
So that morning, Keith Hyatt, Barry's friend, he had to drive past there on the way to work. He saw all the police there, so he wondered if it had anything to do with Rachel, because obviously she'd been missing for a couple of days.
Of course.
So he decided to stop and ask.
Right.
Bad idea.
Oh dear.
He approached the nearest police officer and asked what was going on, and he explained that his friend's girlfriend was missing. The officer said, "Hang on, I'll just go and get a DC." And the next thing he knew, he was being taken to the police station.
All right.
The police thought that this was classic behaviour of a killer or someone who was involved in the murder coming back to the scene to see what was going on. And they actually arrested him for the murder of Rachel.
I mean, I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but not every person's the same.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen it where people, in other cases, where people sort of put themselves
at the forefront,
Yeah. That is a classic thing, but I'm sorry, the guy was just going to say, "Oh, my friend's girlfriend's missing,"
Yeah. It could have been innocent.
Well, it was innocent because wrongfully accused.
I guess he was wrongfully accused then.
Yeah, well, yeah. Not for the murder though.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there. Just hang on.
Okay. I'm hanging on.
So Rachel had been strangled and her face had been attacked savagely with some sort of weapon. She was struck about 17 times after she'd been strangled, so she was already dead by this point.
What? She'd been hit more?
Yeah, she'd been strangled to death.
Right.
And then she was struck 17 times. Most of her teeth were broken, her jaw was broken. It was a frenzied and brutal attack.
Right.
She had received a few nasty injuries to her face and around the eye sockets, her cheeks and her head. According to the police said it looked like whoever had done it had tried to mask her identity by causing injuries that would disfigure her.
Right, okay.
And I'm getting annoyed. So experts, can I do that finger thing?
Yeah, well, experts.
Yeah. Said that would be the kind of thing that maybe a boyfriend would do. or at least someone who knew her. Someone who felt anger towards her and would feel the need to do something after she was dead. So that actually puts the focus on Rachel's boyfriend, Barry.
Right.
So the police arrested him and took him to the police station. Barry said that they were adamant that it was him that had killed Rachel. Right for the off. Barry and Keith were released on bail and found themselves all over the newspapers. They both had 3 sets of interviews. So the first set was in December, another set in January, and another set in February. And at the end of the interviews, they were both charged. So
on what basis?
not very much. So the trial of Barry White and Keith Hyatt began in July 2001. Barry was accused of killing Rachel, and Keith was accused of helping Barry dispose of the body.
Right.
So the trial lasted 5 weeks. Oh God, this is just ridiculous. The prosecution claimed that Barry and Keith were having a sexual relationship, and that's why they needed to get rid of Rachel.
Right.
Who was an obstacle.
And what evidence did they have for that?
Well, I'll tell you. But I mean, even if that was true, like they're saying, oh, Rachel was an obstacle in the way of that relationship. Finish with her.
Exactly.
Tell her that you're gay.
Yeah.
Tell her that you're in a relationship with a man. Yeah, she might be pissed off to start off with, but she would have got over it.
Exactly. Why can't people just do that?
I know. Anyway, so now that claim was not that. There was no evidence of it. It was just a claim.
Right.
And it was based almost entirely on an entry in Keith's diary of having seen Barry without his top on at a party that they went to, and he stated that Barry had a nice body. That was it.
That's what they based
Keith
it on.
said that Barry had a nice body. So
Right,
they
so
were in a sexual relationship and they had to kill Rachel because she was in the way.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that is unbelievable.
So basically the prosecution, they also suggested that rather than Barry and Rachel going their separate ways on the night that she disappeared, you know, obviously he went back to Keith's and she was going for a taxi, that Barry had actually caught up with Rachel and they'd had a massive argument and he got angry and strangled her. Then he phoned Keith to help him move the body, and supposedly when they moved the body, Barry attacked Rachel with a steering lock.
Right.
I don't know where they got this from.
I was going to say that there's no actual evidence to suggest.
There's no evidence of any of that, apart from the murder weapon. Well, not the murder weapon, because obviously it was after she had died, but the weapon was the steering lock. It was a steering lock.
Yeah.
But...
So would they not have, like, fingerprinted that and stuff?
Well... they did it at some point.
Well, yeah, but you think they would do it before they come and accuse and charge people?
I've told you, it's infuriating, this case. On the day that Rachel's body had been found, the police impounded Keith's van. So, obviously, as soon as... Because obviously he'd got out of his van, went and spoke to them. He never got his van back, basically.
Yeah.
They took off. But as it was a work van, it had the name of the company on it. And it had been... And it was... Sorry.
Word.
Every week I cannot speak. There's always a bit.
Yeah.
So, the van was photographed being taken away by the police and was on the front page of the paper.
Oh God, that would have done good for his company.
Well, people just assumed that he was guilty because of that. Which was, you know, well, trial by media, I suppose, again.
As always.
Yeah. So, this is ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. The primary evidence centred around particles of lighter flint alleged to have been found on Rachel's clothing.
Lighter flint?
Yeah, you know when you light your
I know
lighter
what it
and
is,
a bit
but I'm
of
like...
the flint comes
yeah,
off.
Yeah, I know what it is, but I just don't understand.
Well, that's what... You haven't let me get to it yet. And other forensic evidence presented by Professor Kenneth Pye. Now remember Kenneth Pye because he's a twat.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Kenneth Pye.
Kenneth Pye is a twat who is a forensic geologist working for the prosecution.
Right.
Basically, if it wasn't for him, this would never went to trial.
Okay.
So this I've actually wrote this Kenneth Pye said that the flint particles were so small they weren't visible to the naked eye, but they were found on Rachel's skirt and also in Keith's van. So the prosecution says she must have been in the van very soon before her body was left at the golf course. And as I said before, it was that bit of evidence that got the case to court.
I mean,
So-
actually, it could have come from anybody.
Well,
How many people smoke or smoked at that time?
you're stealing my thunder.
Sorry.
You're taking away from what I've
Well,
written
carry
here.
on. I'm getting infuriated, so...
See, I told you it was an annoying case.
Yes.
So Rachel smoked, and so did Barry. They had been at a club where there'd been a lot of smoking. There's video evidence that they'd been sitting on the floor at the fancy dress party doing that dance where everybody sits in a row, and it's like,
Ah, yeah. Yeah, I know what it's...
sag your head,
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
And there was also lots of smoking there as well, because this is before the smoking ban, so you were
You
allowed
would
to
smoke inside the clubs
yeah,
and pubs and
smoke
stuff.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So surely there must have been lighter flint everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I would have thought so.
And also, Rachel had bought the skirt from a second-hand shop the day before, so
Could have already been there.
it could. Yeah, we don't know if it might not have been cleaned before being sold, or you don't know, do you?
No.
So Keith was a really heavy smoker, and he very rarely cleaned the van out.
Yeah.
So there would have been thousands of particles of lighter flint
Yeah.
in there because he was smoking in the van.
But then how does any normal person... Me and you can understand that. How come a professional, those inverted fingers, whatever you want to call them, how can a professional not get that then?
Fucking Kenneth Pye.
Well, fucking Kenneth Pye. Fucking pie head.
So, I don't know. I don't understand how it was that bit of evidence that took the case to court. I have no idea.
That's crazy.
So there were 10 forensic experts, and only one of them made the connection of the lighter flint, which was fucking Kenneth Pye.
So what happened to the other bloody 9 then?
So if it hadn't been for him, the case wouldn't have even got to court, as there was no other evidence to connect Barry and Keith to the murder. And in fact, that evidence was only apparently connecting Keith, so I don't even know how they came to the conclusion that Barry killed her.
Well, just because that he was staying there and he was friends and not, he was the boyfriend.
Yeah, I mean, like, as I said, I think they came to that fact because of the way that she was killed. Oh, that must have been somebody who knew her. That must have been her boyfriend. Like, I mean, if there was any, I don't know if there was any sort of forensic evidence that pointed to Barry. I didn't see anything about it.
Right.
So, lighter flint connecting Keith to helping dispose of the body, nothing apart from the fact that Barry was her boyfriend.
Yeah, and they had been together that night.
So, really infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
So when the time came for the jury to make a decision, this judge was a twat as well. Sorry, forgot to say that.
Oh.
The judge said, we really need, I don't know what day it was on, but the judge had said, we really need a decision by Friday because I'm going away on holiday.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What?
So I thought that was really unfair because I thought, well, that's putting the jury under pressure to make a decision that they might have needed more time.
Yeah, they might
but
not be
because,
ready to
I don't know how, as I said, I don't know what day it was, but to give them an actual deadline was putting pressure on.
I know. And then, regardless of the two men being guilty or not guilty, I mean, that's still their lives that you're talking about there, that you're deciding the fate of, so...
I don't think anybody in that prosecution cared. I think they just wanted to get somebody,
like
to pin it on somebody, to get somebody put away.
I know. And that's what annoys me. It's like, you trust in the police and the justice to find the right person that has done these crimes, because I mean there's probably a hell of a lot more people that sadly have been wrongfully accused and convicted and lost parts of their life throughout. I know they don't always get it wrong, but there's cases when they do.
I know, and that's what Barry had said sort of later on. It was like, it could happen to you, it could happen to anybody.
That's it, especially that same. I mean, me and you are just sitting here discussing it, and obviously we are no experts on crime, forensics, or anything like that. But on that evidence that you've just, or evidence again in the comments, I could easily tell you that it's not dead set that it's them, unless there's something else. Those things to me wouldn't.
Oh, they did not. I mean, all they did was go out and look for her.
Well, yeah, they were trying to find her, but I mean, maybe Barry shouldn't have left her to get a taxi on her own, but.
Well, no, maybe not, but like.
But if anything, that's about as far wrong as it sounds like it's done, maybe.
Should we just get on with it?
Yeah, let's
I'm annoyed.
Kind of.
You'll be more annoyed in a minute. So Barry White received a life sentence. See, in these cases that we've done before, when they've only got a few years for actually killing somebody, and this person who hasn't done anything wrong gets a life sentence.
That's crazy.
So annoying. And Keith was convicted of conspiracy to pervert the course of justice and was sentenced to 5 years.
Right.
So from the moment of their arrest, they had both protested their innocence, obviously, because they were, but only their families and a few friends believed them. Barry was put on the hospital wing at first because they thought he was suicidal. He was there for a few months when he was shipped, and then he was shipped out to a prison called Bullingdon, which he said was awful. He had to defend himself in fights and there they all believed that he'd killed a teenage girl.
Yeah.
Even though he said he was innocent, no one believed him because, you know,
No,
everybody's innocent, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know. So Keith, he was writing letters every night. He wrote to the Queen, Prince Philip, Prince Charles, all the way down the royal family, the Prime Minister, cabinet ministers, just anyone and everybody that he could think of. You know, telling them, you know, that they'd been wrongfully accused. So I don't know if it was because of him writing all those letters, but eventually the matter of Rachel's murder came to the attention of a BBC television investigative programme called Rough Justice.
Oh, right, okay.
I've never heard of it,
I've
but
never heard of it,
it was, as I said, it was on the BBC, and it investigated alleged miscarriages of justice. It ran from 1982 to 2007 and played a role in overturning the convictions of 18 people involved in 13 separate cases where miscarriages of justice had occurred.
Oh, wow.
So as you just said, you know, there's probably quite a lot of people that...
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, it happens. So the producer, Louise Shorter, she focused on the key pieces of forensic evidence which had convicted the two men. Sorry, clear my throat. She contacted loads of people about it, and eventually she found Dr. Peter Bull, and this was his area of expertise because he's a forensic geologist and not a twat like Kenneth Pye.
Pie man.
He'd said right from the beginning that he would take the case pro bono, but she had to warn both Barry and Keith to be very careful because if they were guilty and he could prove it, then he would.
Yeah.
But they were innocent, so they had nothing to worry about. So they're like, right, you know,
Go
take
for
the
it.
case,
Yeah.
go for it. So Peter organised DNA tests and he re-examined the particles found on Rachel's skirt. He said, quote, "There were only 20 odd particles, I think, in the end, that were found on the skirt, and it was quite important, I think, for the prosecution that you didn't get vast amounts of these particles. Small amounts would only come off every time you flick a lighter. So I tested that assertion, and they were wrong." End quote.
Right.
There were clearly significant question marks over the whole forensic process, and just as concerning was what hadn't been found as well. Because one of the concerns that Keith had always had was that he had an Alsatian dog, and he would take it in the van with him quite regularly, but none of the samples taken off the seats, which formed the basis of fucking Kenneth Pye's evidence, I've just got to call him that, sorry,
Okay.
never didn't contain any dog hair. Now, come on.
Yeah.
We know we will both have had dogs.
Yeah.
Dog hair gets everywhere.
Yeah.
And an Alsatian.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
They'll get everywhere.
So Keith always did wonder if the samples were actually taken from his vehicle or and if they were taken from his vehicles, why wasn't there any dog hairs found?
Yeah.
Because obviously there would be.
Well, yeah,
anybody
of course
who's got a dog knows
Absolutely.
there will be dog hair all over that van.
Yeah.
Well, where the dog, in the front bit of the van.
Exactly.
There were 3 reports from 3 forensic scientists, and all of them said that the Kenneth from fucking Kenneth Pye was unreliable. Sorry, I know I don't usually swear, but he just really annoyed me. So that what he claimed to be particles from the cigarette lighter had not been properly tested, in the sense that yes, they came from a cigarette lighter, but their actual mixture was not unusual at all.
How the hell is he allowed to be part of the prosecution and be an actual credible...
I don't know, but I hope he lost his job after this.
Yeah.
I don't know if he did or not,
so
but he should have.
unprofessional and very amateurish from him if that's the case. Why would he have to... What, was he trying to make himself look good or...
I don't know. I think he just convinced himself that these men were guilty, so he was just
finding anything that could...
sometimes if you made up your mind...
That's wrong. That's so wrong. I mean, I know, when it comes to juries and stuff like that, a matter of opinion does actually sometimes matter, but you've got to at least have forensic evidence to back that before you can
of course.
form an opinion. And if that's all they had, and that's what he presented...
It shouldn't have went to trial.
Exactly.
So the prosecution were making out that these particles on that front seat meant that Rachel could have only sat on that particular seat at that time, when in actual fact, those particles could have been on any surface near to where a cigarette smoker could have been. Which is what we've kind of said that. So, and just as importantly, CCTV didn't back up any of the prosecution's stories, particularly them saying, Barry and Keith had said that they'd been at this car park in the town, but the prosecution said no, they didn't.
Right.
So obviously when they were looking back in this case with this rough justice, there was an officer required to play CCTV footage that was available, and the defence had asked the question, is there footage of the car park? And they said no, there wasn't. But rough justice, as I said, they were investigating it. The officer played some film and let it run on too long, and they came across footage that showed Keith and Barry in that car park twice.
That's bad.
So then it turned out that there was actually loads of CCTV footage that night that showed where Barry and Keith were. So after seeing all of the, the different CCTV footage, it was realised that they would have only had a tiny opportunity to carry out what they were being accused of. I mean, like, they actually said minuscule.
Right.
That's because they've been caught that many times.
Because remember, they'd said that they had went to Blockbuster because that's where Toilet to meet her. She wasn't there. They'd waited, they drove around, they went back.
They went back 3 times.
3 times, so surely, yeah, you'd think they would have been caught on CCTV.
Yeah, so how this CCTV wasn't checked beforehand, I have no idea. I mean, why is it only coming to light now?
Well, I know, why? Why would that not be...
It just, as I said, it just looks like the prosecution have decided they're guilty.
Because if the two boys have been like interviewed, they would have said, right, well, that's what we did. So I'd automatically go, right, as a police officer,
check CCTV.
Let's go. There must be CCTV in the streets and stuff. Let's go and check it because duh.
I know that's what I'm saying. This case is so infuriating. So you're probably in a bad mood for the rest of the day because you just got so annoyed. And it was also noted that there was no mud in the van, which there would have been if they actually had taken Rachel's body to the golf course because it was really muddy there. So it would have been mud off their feet.
Yeah.
So after the programme, Rough Justice had aired, everyone could see that Barry and Keith were innocent.
Yeah.
Like, they got to watch it in the prison. Yeah. And other inmates and officers were saying to Barry, you're innocent, like, you'll be going home.
Yeah.
And he thought he would be. But unfortunately, it'd be another 3 years before that happened.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, took 3 years. But they were still, I don't know, they must have still been, even though this TV programme was portraying them as innocent, then obviously there must have been other legal stuff that... So anyway, every time Rough Justice found a piece of evidence that could either destroy or confirm their story, every single time it backed up what Keith and Barry had told them. So, they started to believe everything. Everything they said, they knew that they were definitely innocent. They knew to believe everything.
Yeah.
And when it came to the murder weapon, the steering lock, whatever evidence had been relied on in the trial was now discredited.
Right.
The science of DNA was rapidly developing, so by this time the new experts said whoever's DNA that's on that steering lock, it's not Barry's and it's not Keith's. Surprise, surprise. The materials that Rachel was wearing was an acrylic nylon type of material which is very smooth, so it doesn't have much of a weave.
Right.
And it attracts lots of particles, and they stayed in Peterbilt's experiments for a long time, and the reason was electrostatic forces kept them there. So some of the particles will drop off initially very fast, but those that do, they get caught up in the weave, stay for a long time, and they'll stay for months. So Peterbilt and his team now believed that the fibres were inconclusive. The CCTV was telling, and the DNA was beyond question. So in 2005, Keith was released on parole after serving 3 years with his conviction still standing. So he served 3 of his 5 years. In 2007, Barry White and Keith Hyatt appealed against their convictions and they won. So their convictions were quashed.
Right.
But the prosecution demanded a retrial for Barry.
Right.
So he was granted bail until the trial. If it's been quashed, why is there a retrial?
It's not been through enough.
So at the trial, Barry was acquitted. So he'd been in prison for 6 years when he'd been innocent all along. The review of evidence and the forensic examinations hadn't just shown that Barry and Keith were innocent, it turned up some new forensics. So the steering lock had DNA on it at the killer's end. So that DNA was loaded on the database as a crime scene sample. Unfortunately, it didn't match with any DNA that was already on the system.
Yeah.
But in May 2010, so this is like 10 years after Rachel was murdered, A woman on a night out approached a car that she thought was a taxi. She got into the car and the driver assaulted her. Luckily, she managed to fight him off and get herself out of the car, and he drove off. A lorry driver had seen what had happened, and so he ran over to see if she was okay. He walked her home and made sure she was safe, and she said that she didn't want to phone the police. So he made his way back to his lorry, and he saw that car again. So he's thinking, he's going to try this with somebody else. So he took note of the registration and he decided to phone the police to report him. So, good job that he did.
Yeah.
Because this registration plate led them to a man who the police knew nothing about. He had no criminal record, hadn't been in trouble with the police before.
Yeah.
The incident required him to give a DNA sample.
Right.
And it matched with the crime scene sample from the steering lock used to murder Rachel. So they found the guy.
Oh, good.
His name was Shahidul Ahmed, and he lived in Bletchley, which is about 8 miles away from Milton Keynes. He worked as a chef, he was married, had 5 children, and was apparently a quiet family man.
Alright.
Oh, my computer's froze. I think we're just about finished. So, oh, there we go. So he was arrested on suspicion of Rachel Manning's murder in September 2010. When his case came to trial, the court heard how Ahmed picked Rachel up on the night she went missing, pretending he was a taxi driver. So obviously, because that's what she was going to do, wasn't she? She was going off to get a taxi.
Yeah.
So he assaulted her and then he dragged her to the golf course where he strangled her before battering her about the head with a steering lock. The court heard how 2 specific pieces of forensic evidence proved Ahmed's association with the crime. A strand of his hair was found in Rachel's clothes.
Right, so surely we know that wasn't Barry's.
And his DNA found on the steering lock.
Jesus.
Shahidul Ahmed received a life sentence for murdering Rachel Manning.
Good. At least the right man got...
Yeah, he got caught eventually. Beef? That was Barry and Keith. Beef. Well, people do have their names.
Yeah, okay, but not in this case.
No. Barry and Keith got compensation, but I'm not sure how much. I read that they could get up to 500,000, so hopefully they got that or something close to that because they deserved it.
What a shame.
Absolutely
a shame. But I mean, I'm glad the right man obviously eventually did get caught.
I know, but that was just by chance as well, because this was 10 years later.
I know, he probably thought he got away with it.
And that girl didn't want to phone the police, so if that lorry driver just went, oh, right, okay, then she doesn't want to phone the police.
Yeah.
But luckily he did. I mean, he might have got caught sooner or later, but... Yeah. So he got caught, and those poor men having to spend, well, 3 years for Keith in jail and 6 years for Barry. And I just think as well, like, I wonder how Rachel's family feel about that, because they probably believed that it was them that done it. And then once they found out they're innocent, I mean, they probably felt guilty for believing it.
Exactly, a shame.
So there you go, there's another one done. So Merry Christmas and all that, you know. I know, well, I know it's not festive at all, but...
No, that is a shame.
But I definitely believe that, you know, Barry and Keith, their story definitely deserve to be told.
Absolutely.
As well as Rachel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Rachel as well. I mean, that poor girl, she was just trying to get a taxi home, but, you know, I mean, to deal with having to, like, your girlfriend has died, been brutally murdered, and you're getting the blame for it. That's horrendous.
I mean... That is fun. I mean, I know, like, in a lot of cases it is the case where maybe the boyfriend or somebody has...
Yeah, no, usually it's like, it was always a husband.
But I can understand that if the evidence matched that, but at no point did the evidence match that, so, you know...
It's like they just decided, they're guilty, let's just get them put away for it.
Yeah, basically, just get a job, you know, get the case closed, basically. Job done.
Yeah, basically.
And fucking Kenneth Pye.
Aye, fucking Kenneth Pye, if it wasn't for him...
Aye.
And that bloody judge as well, really wanting to go on holiday. I mean, like, nobody seemed to care about them, and nobody seemed to want to get, like, they want to get justice for Rachel, but they should have been wanting to get the right justice,
exactly.
the proper.
That's it, the right justice, But...
So, right, well, that was that. So, if you'd like to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, we are crime_divers_pod. We have a Facebook page,
Crime Divers Podcast.
We have, what else?
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Crime Divers Podcast.
Email.
crime_divers_pod@outlook.com.
And if you would like to support the show in any way, get bonus episodes and early access to But
right, eh?
I still can't say it.
No.
Early access to episodes.
Yes, that's it.
Then if you go to patreon.com and search for Crime
And
Divers.
you will find us there.
Yeah. So we shall be back next week.
Alright then.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.